The stairwell swallowed the last trace of daylight. Tsubasa had barely reached the bottom step when Megumi, class president, ice-cold perfection, blocked his path and thrust a phone toward his face.
Just for 1 week, please.
The screen glowed with a too neat photo. The two of them, heads tilted together, smiling as if they had never exchanged a hostile word.
What is this?
I need you to pretend to be my boyfriend.
You? The girl who called me the lowest form of trash in front of the entire class. Now you want me to play boyfriend?
I can't explain now. Please, Tsubasa, just listen.
No. You don't get to humiliate me for a year and then beg for a favor like we're strangers.
I'm begging you.
He turned and walked away, leaving her alone in the dim stairwell. The fake photo glowed against her uniform, a lie she was now trapped inside. Tsubasa's footsteps echoed down the hall. Then a year-old memory surfaced, the day she called him trash in front of everyone.
This entire proposal is irresponsible. The student who submitted it is the lowest form of trash.
The classroom erupted in muffled laughter. Tsubasa's face burned, every stare a separate wound.
She didn't just reject my idea, she annihilated me in front of everyone, for sport. After you destroyed me for no reason, you think I'll play your boyfriend? You're insane!
I can't.
A year of contempt and you're sorry? The wound doesn't close because you suddenly need a favor.
Megumi's mouth opened, but no sound came. The phone shook in her hands, the photo a silent accusation.
I'm done. Find someone else to play your twisted game.
He left without a backward glance. Megumi slid down the wall, the phone clattering to the floor, its screen still glowing. Megumi sat crumpled on the stairwell floor. His footsteps faded, each one a door closing. Then she pushed herself upright. She ran, down the hallway, past the lockers, the phone a sharp weight in her hand, the fake photo still glowing.
Wait, my mother is dying. She has terminal cancer, weeks, maybe days left.
The words struck Tsubasa like a cold blade. His anger stalled, replaced by something heavier.
I made up a boyfriend months ago, just stories, to let her die thinking I wouldn't be alone. But she wanted a photo, so I panicked. I used your yearbook picture and photoshopped us together. She thinks you're my boyfriend, and I promised to bring you to her before it's too late.
This isn't about me at all. She's drowning, and I'm just the nearest piece of driftwood.
Tsubasa stood frozen. The phone screen glowed between them like a confession neither knew how to answer.
Why me? Of everyone in this school, why pick the one you publicly called worthless?
Look at her. This is my mother before the cancer. She just wanted a photo of me smiling with someone.
She swiped to the photoshopped image. The edges were crude, the smiles artificial, a desperate lie.
I flipped through the yearbook in a panic. Your face was the only one I could bring myself to use.
The only one she could bear? What does that even mean?
I promised I'd bring you this weekend. If I show up alone, she'll know I lied. She'll die thinking I'm alone.
You think I can just walk into a hospital room and pretend to care about you? After a year of contempt?
I'm not asking for affection. I'm asking for 3 hours. 1 visit. Let her believe just long enough.
The hallway stretched silent. Somewhere a door slammed, but neither moved. The phone screen dimmed between them.
3 hours. A dying woman's last wish. Walk away and be the villain, or stay and be a liar. Either way, I lose. None of this explains why you targeted me a year ago. If you needed an enemy, why me?
I can't tell you yet. Not here. Not now.
You owe me that much, Megumi. After a year of poison, I deserve to know why.
If you come with me this weekend, if you help her, I swear I'll explain everything. After.
She won't even defend herself. There's something darker here. Something she's too broken to voice.
Her voice cracked on the word explain. She was offering the truth later, but only if he acted first.
You want me to trust you? The same person who ruined my reputation for fun?
It wasn't for fun. It was never about you. Please, Tsubasa, I'm begging on my mother's name.
Not about me? Then who? Her walls are grief, not hate. Maybe I've been wrong about everything.
The stairwell held its breath. Megumi's plea hung in the air, a fragile bridge between old wounds and an impossible choice.
I don't deserve your help, I know that. But my mother doesn't deserve to die thinking her daughter is alone.
And then Megumi did what no one in the school would believe. She sank to her knees on the cold stairwell floor. The gold class rep pin caught the last light, a tiny star now drowned in tears.
Even if you hate me forever, even if you walk away the moment we leave her room, just give her this one lie.
The image of her at the podium sneering began to blur. This wasn't the same person. This was a girl drowning in grief, using hatred as a life raft.
For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the school and Megumi's uneven breathing.
If I walk away now, I'll see that image for the rest of my life. Her on her knees, begging for a scrap of mercy.
Please, just let her see a picture of us together before she closes her eyes. That's all I'm asking.
Tsubasa's gaze dropped to the phone screen. The photoshopped image was a clumsy fiction, but the weight behind it was crushing.
Maybe the hate was never about me. And maybe I can't be the one to take away her last hope.
He hadn't said yes, but he also hadn't left, and for Megumi, still on her knees, that was enough to keep breathing.
Fine. 1 week. But when it's over, you tell me everything. No more lies.
Megumi's head snapped up, disbelief cutting through the tears. She hadn't expected him to agree.
I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because no one should die believing a lie they needed to hear.
He turned toward the stairwell door. Each step was deliberate, drawing a line between the boy who had been hurt and the one now walking into a lie.
Tsubasa.
But he didn't look back. The door swung shut with a heavy click, sealing the promise in the empty corridor. Megumi remained on the cold floor, the phone a lead weight in her lap. Relief and dread tangled on her face.
I just agreed to date the girl who destroyed me. What the hell did I just do?
The stairwell grew dimmer. Upstairs, the distant bounce of a basketball echoed, oblivious to the bargain struck below. 1 week, one dying wish, and a truth that still waited in the shadows, ready to change everything. The next morning, the school corridors felt narrower. Tsubasa saw Megumi approaching and braced himself, but she only stopped a careful distance away.
We need to prepare. After school, the empty club room. I'll explain everything you need to know.
Fine. I'll be there.
The club room smelled of old paper and floor wax. Megumi opened a notebook filled with neat, frantic handwriting, lists of her mother's favorite flowers, snacks, conversation topics.
We've been dating for 3 months, secretly, because I didn't want school distractions while my mother was so ill. That's the story.
3 months. And you just photoshopped us? You could have picked anyone. But you chose me months ago?
That's part of what I'll explain later. For now, just know this. She loves white chrysanthemums. Bring some, and she'll trust you instantly.
White chrysanthemums, the same flower from her mother's photo. She's built this lie brick by brick, alone. You've put a lot of work into this. For a fake boyfriend, I mean.
They parted without another word. But as Tsubasa walked home, he couldn't shake the image of her handwriting. Meticulous, desperate, full of a love he'd never been allowed to see. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and stale hope. Tsubasa walked beside Megumi, a bunch of white chrysanthemums clutched in his hand.
Mom, this is Tsubasa. I told you about him.
You're real. Megumi showed me your photo. Oh, he's even handsomer in person.
It's an honor to meet you. Megumi's told me so much about you.
Remember when she was 5 and tried to cook? The kitchen looked like a war zone. She cried for hours.
3 hours. I thought it would be torture. But her hand is so light, and her stories almost make me forget this is a lie.
From the doorway, Megumi watched, her hands twisted together, her relief as fragile as the woman in the bed.
This dying woman, she's the only one who's ever looked at me like I matter. And it's all built on a lie.
The visit ended too quickly. The mother squeezed Tsubasa's hand and made him promise to come back soon. He nodded, not trusting his voice. As they stepped into the corridor, Tsubasa glanced back. Her mother was already fading into sleep, a serene smile on her face. Megumi walked Tsubasa to the hospital exit, her steps clipped. At the sliding doors, she stopped and turned, but her eyes stayed fixed on the floor.
Thank you. It meant more than you know.
That's it? I just spent 3 hours lying to a dying woman. And you can't even meet my eyes? I'm not a machine you plug in and discard. Look at me, Megumi. Just once, like I'm a person.
Megumi flinched. Then, slowly, she raised her chin. Her eyes, red-rimmed and bare, locked onto his. For 3 heartbeats, the corridor vanished. All that remained was the truth of 2 people who had never really seen each other before.
I'll call you. We still need to plan the rest of the week.
She spun and hurried back through the automatic doors. Her shoulders were drawn tight, a fortress with its gate momentarily breached.
For a second, she wasn't my enemy. She was just a girl holding the world together with paper and lies.
The chrysanthemums felt heavier. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent to the fragile bridge that had just cracked open. The next few days, the school corridors tightened. Every shared glance between Tsubasa and Megumi drew stares, and the whispers began to spread like ink in water. In the classroom, a girl leaned to her neighbor, her voice carrying just enough. Isn't she the one who called him trash? Now they're holding hands?
They're watching us. Just act natural.
Natural. After a year of public humiliation, even a fake smile feels like a second defeat.
After class, Tsubasa's closest friend pulled him aside near the lockers, his expression a mix of concern and disbelief. The question came bluntly, a half-whisper. Are you seriously dating the class president? The same girl who destroyed you in that debate?
It's complicated. We've been together for a couple of months. People change.
The excuse tasted like ash, but the alternative, exposing Megumi's dying mother, was a line he wouldn't cross. Not yet.
The whispers are getting louder. I heard a girl say she saw us holding hands. You can still back out, I'd understand.
1 week. That's all I agreed to. But already this fake relationship is bleeding into every corner of my life, and I'm not sure I want to stop the bleeding.
Their walk back from the hospital stretched into dusk. The first raindrops hit silently. Then the sky broke open without warning. They ducked under the narrow awning of a closed bookshop. The space was tight. Their shoulders nearly touched.
It's really coming down.
Tsubasa peeled off his blazer and draped it over her shoulders. The motion was sudden, almost instinctive. Megumi stiffened. Her fingers clutched the fabric. Then, almost imperceptibly, she leaned into the shared warmth.
This isn't about her mother. This isn't about the deal right now. I just can't stand seeing her cold.
Neither spoke. The storm hammered the street as if to lock the world away, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the faint scent of rain on wool.
Don't read into this. It's just a jacket. But his scent is warm, and for a second, I don't feel so alone.
The downpour eased just as suddenly as it began. Tsubasa stepped out first, his white shirt clinging to his shoulders. Megumi followed slowly, still wrapped in his blazer. Neither mentioned it, but the space between them had shifted, a fragile, unspoken new gravity. The next morning, Tsubasa's friend cornered him in the classroom, voice low. Are you in love with her? Or is this just pity for her dying mother?
I didn't answer. I couldn't. The truth was a knot I couldn't untangle.
His friend warned, pity isn't love. You'll destroy her, and when her mother dies, you'll be trapped.
Is that all this is? Or did I already cross a line that rain-soaked afternoon?
Tsubasa retreated to the rooftop, the rain's memory still clinging to the air.
She leaned into me. Not for show, But was it just because she needed anyone?
He clenched his fists. One more week. Getting closer would hurt her. He had to stop. But the image of her, wrapped in his blazer, refused to fade. He told himself he'd keep his distance. A promise he wasn't sure he could keep. The week blurred past. On the last scheduled visit, Tsubasa walked beside Megumi through the hospital corridor. Relief tangled with an ache he couldn't name.
Tomorrow this would be over. But the thought brought less relief than a strange, hollow weight.
Megumi's mother lay propped on pillows, her smile fragile as old lace. When Tsubasa sat beside her, she took his hand.
You made Megumi smile again. I haven't seen her this happy in a year. Thank you.
Tsubasa opened his mouth to deflect, but the words dissolved. Her gratitude was real, and it cut through every cynical shield he'd built. From the doorway, Megumi pressed her hand to her lips, tears spilling silent and hot.
I can go peacefully now. Just promise you'll take care of her.
I will. Always.
Megumi's hands fell to her sides. Her eyes, wide and wet, reflected a shock so raw it stripped her of every guard. The air in the room shifted. Tsubasa couldn't take it back, and found he didn't want to. They walked back in silence. At the school rooftop, Megumi finally spun around, blocking his path. Her tears had dried, replaced by a raw, jagged anger.
Why did you say it? Always. That wasn't part of our deal.
I got caught up in the moment. It's what she needed to hear.
So now you're my hero? I didn't ask for your pity. I don't want it.
This isn't pity. You're just terrified that someone might actually stay.
Megumi flinched as if he'd struck her. The truth he'd thrown into the open had been buried in her chest for years.
Every person I love leaves or dies. If I push him away first, it won't hurt as much when he goes.
This isn't about me at all. She's been abandoned so many times she can't trust anyone to stay.
The silence stretched, heavy with unshed tears and truths neither knew how to voice. Megumi turned away, rebuilding her walls with every step. But Tsubasa had seen the cracks, and he couldn't unsee them. Tsubasa wandered the empty school, his mind unable to settle. His feet found the stairwell again, as if the concrete held answers. On the cold steps where she had once knelt, Megumi sat alone, cradling a small gold frame. She hadn't heard him approach.
I'm sorry, Haruki. I dragged him into this. He doesn't deserve to carry our grief.
The photo in her hands was of a young man with messy brown hair, a jawline strikingly similar to Tsubasa's.
His face is your face. Every time I saw him, I saw you, and it felt like losing you again. So I hated him. I called him trash. I thought if I could make him hate me back, maybe it wouldn't hurt so much.
A dead man. She wasn't hating me, she was mourning him.
But now I've trapped him in a lie, and Mother will die thinking he's you.
Tsubasa stepped from the shadows. The echo of his shoe filled the stairwell like a struck bell.
Your uncle. That's why you picked me. I look like him.
Megumi scrambled up, the frame clattering. She lunged for the stairs, but Tsubasa caught her wrist.
Stop running. The day you humiliated me, it was the anniversary of his death, wasn't it?
The day after his memorial, I saw your face and couldn't see anything but him.
A hollow ache bloomed in his chest. All this time he'd been fighting a dead man's shadow and losing.
What was his name? I need to know.
Haruki, he saved me from a car, he died for me. And your face, it reminded me of everything I lost.
Haruki. The name carved deeper into her grief than any insult could.
The guilt behind her hatred finally surfaced. She had been punishing herself as much as him, if not more.
With a softer voice, he asked, "Did he love chrysanthemums too?" I may look like him, but I'm not leaving like he did. I'm not your uncle, Megumi. I'm still here, and I won't vanish.
The following days, Tsubasa returned to the hospital alone. Each time, he brought white chrysanthemums. Her mother's room became a quiet sanctuary. She was weaker, but her eyes lit up whenever he appeared.
These were Haruki's favorites too. He'd bring them every visit when I was first diagnosed. He died saving Megumi from a car. She was 5, and he pushed her clear. He never woke up.
So Megumi's been carrying survivor's guilt and her mother's grief this whole time, all while playing the perfect student.
She's blamed herself every day. You're the first person she's let in since. Please, don't give up on her.
I'm not going anywhere. I promised, remember? But being around me must remind her of everything she lost, yet she still chose to bring me here. For her mother.
Later, as he left, he glimpsed Megumi's silhouette through the door's small window. She stood outside, watching but not entering. The weight of being a stand-in settled deep in his chest, but it solidified his resolve rather than breaking it. Tsubasa's phone erupted in the dark. A text from Megumi. "Mom collapsed. She's asking for you." He ran. The hospital corridors blurred, his blazer streaming like a banner, his lungs burning with more than exertion. In the room, the mother's hand lifted weakly toward the door. Megumi was already at her side, face raw with tears.
Both of you, come here.
She took his hand, then Megumi's, and pressed them together. Her skin was paper thin, her grip a fading whisper.
Promise me you'll look after each other.
Megumi's sob fractured the silence. Tsubasa managed only a nod, his throat too tight for words. The mother smiled, a small exhausted curve, and let her eyes fall shut. The monitors beeped on, a fragile metronome.
I meant what I said. I'm not leaving. But right now, all I can do is hold her while the world shrinks to this room.
4 days passed in a blur of beeping monitors and whispered hopes. Tsubasa rarely left the hospital, and Megumi barely spoke. They took turns at the bedside, a silent vigil. The mother drifted in and out of consciousness, her hand always reaching for one of theirs.
In a sudden lucid moment, she looked at Tsubasa and smiled. You're a good son. Thank you for making her happy.
Son. The word lodged in his throat, heavier than any promise.
On the 4th morning, just before dawn, the monitors slowed. Megumi was holding her mother's hand when the last breath escaped. The mother's face relaxed into a peaceful stillness, the faint smile of a woman who had finally let go. Megumi didn't move. The silence swelled, swallowing the room, pressing against the walls until it was all there was. In the corner, Tsubasa stood frozen. The reality of the moment crushed down. The job was over, but the wait had only begun.
She's gone. The only person who loved me unconditionally is gone.
And in that deafening quiet, the fragile arrangement they'd built lay shattered, demanding something real to take its place. The funeral was gray, the rain a constant murmur on black umbrellas. Megumi stood at the graveside, rigid as stone, accepting condolences without a single tear. Tsubasa stood a few rows back, his school uniform a sharp contrast among the dark attire. But his presence was the only thing that felt unforced.
Just keep standing. Don't cry. If you start, you'll never stop.
After the final words, she slipped away behind the crematorium. Only Tsubasa noticed and followed. There, alone, her walls crumbled. Megumi's shoulders heaved with silent sobs that quickly broke into raw, piercing cries. Tsubasa stepped closer and placed his hand gently on her back. No words, just the solid, unshakable pressure of someone staying. She leaned into him, her forehead pressing against his chest, and cried out years of guilt, grief, and loneliness into the damp fabric of his uniform.
The deal is over. But I'm still here. And I'm not leaving.
In the rain, they stood, a boy who had once been called trash, and the girl who had been too afraid to need anyone, now holding on without a single lie between them. A week later, Megumi returned to school, pale as winter, moving through corridors like a ghost. She avoided Tsubasa with a precision that cut deeper than any insult. After school, Tsubasa found her on the rooftop, alone with the gray sky, her back to the door.
The deal is done. Her funeral is over. You don't have to pretend anymore.
I'm not pretending. Not anymore. I want to be here for real.
You look like him. That's the only reason I chose you. You're just a stand-in for Haruki.
I know, and I'm telling you I'm not him. I'm Tsubasa. The guy you called trash, the guy who still chose to stay.
If we continue, I'll just be using you to fill his void. It's not fair to you.
You're not using me if I choose to be here. I'm not offering to be Haruki. I'm offering to be with you, Megumi. Just me.
Megumi searched his face, looking for the familiar ghost. But all she found was a boy, bruised and brave, refusing to let go. She didn't answer. The silence stretched taut between them, but she didn't pull away. The next day, Megumi's father appeared at the school gate, his silhouette sharp as a blade against the afternoon light. His presence silenced the air around him. He pulled Megumi aside, voice low and cold. "I've heard about this boy you've been parading. Are you trying to disgrace your mother's memory?"
Disgrace her? Tsubasa is the only person who saw me break and didn't run. He's the only one who stayed.
Her father's jaw tightened. "It's been mere days since the funeral. This is irresponsible, Megumi. You're not thinking clearly."
I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have. Mother knew. She held our hands together and asked him to look after me. She blessed this.
For a moment, the father froze. The weight of her words hung between them like a verdict.
I won't push him away just because you've always wanted me to be alone. I'm done being alone.
Her father turned away, shoulders rigid, leaving the final word unspoken. But Megumi did not call after him. A girl who had spent years shrinking under grief stood taller now, having chosen a boy who refused to be a ghost. Months blurred. The gossip died. Walking home together became an ordinary, quiet fact of their day. Sometimes, without thinking, their fingers laced together, a gesture that belonged only to them. In class, no one stared anymore. A few friends simply smiled when they sat together, normal at last. On the hardest day of the year, she let him stay. No empty words. He just sat beside her on a quiet bench, steady as the chrysanthemums he brought.
She doesn't need me to fix anything. Just to be here. Maybe that's enough.
At the school festival, they ran a crepe stand. Megumi laughed at his terrible flipping, a small, ordinary joy that felt like a victory. On the rooftop at dusk, she spoke of Haruki without tears. Tsubasa listened, not as a replacement, but as proof that life could hold both grief and hope.
She's not my enemy. I'm not her stand-in. We've become something I won't let go of.
He stayed, through everything. Maybe I can let myself believe he'll keep staying.
By spring, they were no longer pretending. They had become each other's quiet, unshakable truth. Graduation day filled the hall with proud families. But one seat in the front row sat empty, a small placard bearing a name. Megumi walked down the aisle, cap and gown, a single white chrysanthemum cradled in her hands. Her eyes never left the empty place.
This is for you, Mom. You said you'd be here. I'm bringing you anyway.
She stopped before the empty chair and laid the chrysanthemum on the cushion, her fingers lingering for just a heartbeat. Behind her, Tsubasa stepped forward from the crowd, an identical white chrysanthemum in his hand.
I'm still here, and I'll make sure she knows you're watching.
Without a word, he knelt and placed his flower beside hers, the two blossoms touching. Megumi looked up at him. No words were needed. Her mother's blessing filled the silence more than any applause ever could. The ceremony continued, but in that moment, a circle had closed, a lie redeemed into a promise, a stand-in made real. Outside the hall, cherry blossoms drifted down like late snow. Megumi and Tsubasa stood under the old tree, diplomas in hand, the world hushed.
Thank you for not running. From the stairwell to now, you never did.
I told you back then, I wasn't pretending. Not really. Somewhere along the way, it became the truest thing I've ever done.
Megumi's eyes glistened, but her tears were no longer a fortress crumbling. They were a door opening.
He stayed, even when I pushed, even when I broke. He never let go.
Tsubasa stepped closer, his hand finding hers. The wind lifted a shower of petals between them.
I'm not going anywhere. I promised her, and I promise you.
She closed the distance first, a long time coming. Their lips met, a gentle, real kiss, tender as the petals brushing their cheeks.
No more lies. Just this.
The cherry blossoms continued to fall, indifferent to the miracle below. Two former enemies, now a single, unbreakable thread. Their friends found them under the cherry tree, laughter spilling across the lawn. Someone raised a camera. Megumi held up her diploma beside Tsubasa, a smile that didn't need rehearsing. The shutter clicked, freezing the moment.
For the first time, the thought of tomorrow didn't scare her. It felt like an invitation.
She packed her bag in the classroom one last time, her fingers brushing the desk where he used to sit. No absences left. At the school gates, he was waiting. Their hands found each other without a glance, a habit now, a promise sealed.
I'm glad I didn't run, even when it would have been easier.
They passed the classroom where she once called him trash. Now just a room of old memories, no longer sharp enough to wound. At the overlook, the city sprawled before them, a canvas of possibility. She leaned into his shoulder, and he held her close. The chrysanthemums on that empty seat had said everything. Now together they would write the rest. 1 year later, the cemetery was quiet. A gentle breeze scattered loose petals across the small headstone, a name worn smooth by time.
Hi, Mom. I brought someone you'd recognize. He's still here.
I told you I'd look after her. I meant it then, and I still do.
Once, I called him trash. Now I can't imagine a day without him. How did I not see it then?
Her mother called me son once. I've carried that word with me every day since.
Tsubase, I don't say it enough. I love you.
You never had to say it. I knew when you put my blazer on in the rain that day.
Two white chrysanthemums leaned side by side against the stone, just as they had once laid on an empty graduation seat. A lie that began in a stairwell had grown into a truth that not even death could touch. They passed through the cemetery gate, and the world opened up, a future no longer needing any rehearsal. They walked past the old stairwell, the door now propped open with a forgotten chair. The same concrete where she once knelt, now just a passage to other halls.
Funny, I called you the lowest form of trash right in that room, and here you are, still holding my hand.
I was too busy being angry to notice you were drowning. Now I'd rather hold your hand than hold a grudge.
He stayed. Even when I gave him every reason to walk away, he stayed.
The building hummed with after-school emptiness, the ghosts of old pain no longer haunting the corridors. Outside, the cherry tree still bloomed, petals drifting like confessions no longer needed. A single chrysanthemum rested on the window ledge where she'd once clutched her phone so desperately. Tsubasa and Megumi walked through the gate, hand in hand, the great unknowable future sprawling ahead. The lie was gone, only they remained. The class rep who once called him trash now knew him as the boy who had never ever let go. Evening found them at the overlook again, the city lights flickering below. The same bench where she had sobbed now cradled a quiet peace.
All this time, I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away, but you were the one protecting me.
You were never a burden, Megumi. You were a storm, and I learned to dance in the rain.
She leaned her head on his shoulder, and the first stars pierced the deepening sky. The silence held no more secrets. In Megumi's room, the graduation photo now sat beside the framed picture of Haruki, a silent acknowledgement of the boy who stayed and the one who could not.
Haruki would have liked him. They both had the same stubborn heart that refused to let go.
Every week, they returned to the cemetery with chrysanthemums, a quiet ritual of memory and gratitude.
I think your mom would be happy. We're still here, still together, just like she asked.
More than happy. She'd say she told us so.
And the wind carried the scent of flowers, and the title of their story was no longer a lie, but a testament. The class rep who called him trash now walked beside him, and he would follow her anywhere. 2 years later, they stepped back into the school. The stairwell still held its shadows, but the air no longer felt heavy.
Right here. I begged you for 1 week. I never imagined it would turn into a lifetime.
Best deal I ever made, even if you did call me trash first.
From a lie to a promise. From a fake photo to a real future.
They walked the empty corridors one last time, past the classroom where she once called him worthless. Now just a room full of old desks and new sunlight.
You know, if someone told me back then I'd marry the girl who humiliated me, I'd have laughed.
I'm glad you didn't. Every day I'm grateful for that fake photo on my phone.
The cherry tree outside the school still bloomed, as it would for every class that followed. But for them, the petals now meant a promise kept and a future still unfolding. And the stairwell that once filled with desperation now only echoed with the sound of their footsteps, walking away together, never looking back. A small chapel, white chrysanthemums lining every pew. Sunlight through stained glass painted the aisle in rose and gold.
I once called you the lowest form of trash. Now I'm standing here, promising to love you for the rest of my life.
And I thought you were my bitterest enemy. Now I can't imagine a single morning without you.
They exchanged rings, 2 simple bands. The same chrysanthemums that once marked a lonely grave now crowned a beginning. As the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Tsubasa lifted her veil and kissed her gently, as if the lie that started it all had finally become the truest moment of their lives. Later, outside the chapel, Megumi paused at the threshold. She turned and tossed her bouquet back toward the empty front pew.
For you, Mom. Thank you for making me call him here.
Tsubasa took her hand, and together they stepped into the bright afternoon. The world ahead no longer needed rehearsals. The class rep who once called him trash, who once begged for a week of pretense, now walked beside him as his wife. Every step a quiet, unbreakable truth. A quiet morning, soft sunlight through the kitchen window. Megumi sat with her phone, scrolling past a familiar image. The photoshopped couple selfie, the clumsy, desperate lie, still glowed on the screen. She'd never deleted it.
You could delete that now. It's not a lie anymore.
No, it's proof that even fake things can become real if you hold on long enough.
He kissed the top of her head and refilled her coffee. The chrysanthemums on the windowsill were freshly cut.
We started with a week. Now I have a lifetime.
The photo remained in her favorites, next to their wedding portrait, 2 instants separated by years, connected by the same stubborn hope. Outside, the cherry tree from their school days began to bloom again, indifferent to the miracle but carrying its petals on the wind. And in that ordinary morning, a boy once called worthless proved that sometimes the best love stories begin with the worst words. The school still stood, its stairwell unchanged. A single white chrysanthemum now rested on the cold step where she had once knelt. No one knew who left it. The corridors echoed with the ghosts of old arguments and the laughter of new students. Some stories became legend. The cherry tree still bloomed every spring, its petals drifting over the courtyard where they had first kissed. And somewhere not far away, in a quiet house full of flowers, a man once called worthless and a woman once too proud to ask for help still held on.
Still here.
Always.
Their hands fit like a remembered promise, no longer needing words. The twilight settled around them, full and gentle. The lie that started in a stairwell had weathered storms, grief, and time. It had grown into a truth as solid as the ground beneath their feet. And in that stairwell, long after they were gone, a new student might find a single dried petal and wonder what story it held. But Tsubasa and Megumi knew, they always would. Years later, they still came to the overlook. The city had changed, but the view remained a constant backdrop to their quiet, enduring story. His hand in hers was the same one that had once pushed her phone away in a dark stairwell. Now it never let go. The school rooftop, where they had once argued and then forgiven, now stood silent. A single white chrysanthemum rested on the railing, left by an anonymous hand. Every spring, on the anniversary of that graduation, 2 fresh chrysanthemums appeared on the seat that had always been hers. No name, just flowers. The hospital room where a mother had once smiled and called him son was now just a room, but the promise made there still held. At the graveside, fresh chrysanthemums always bloomed, week after week. A quiet devotion that no gravestone could ever fully hold. The cherry tree continued its own seasons, indifferent to the lives that passed beneath it, yet somehow a part of every story that mattered. They walked down the familiar path toward home, the future no longer a frightening unknown, but simply the next step. The class rep who once called him trash now walked beside him, every step a quiet testament that sometimes the most desperate lies grow into the most beautiful truths.